Hi, thanks for joining Life and Times, and today my guest is Willard Ripley, and I am so happy that you're here, Willard, to talk to me.
Well, as always, Mary, it's a pleasure.
It's definitely my pleasure. So I want to hear about your life.
My life or my life in Fernie?
Your life in Fernie.
Yeah.
But you can tell me, if you want, a little bit about your life elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, my life in Fernie really started because I'm a skier. And I was always a skier. Like, my family started skiing when we were just kids. Out of the blue, my father decided we should start skiing, and we all got ski equipment, and away we went, skiing in Nova Scotia. In Wentworth Valley, my father helped build the first rope tow that was there, and skiing was just a thing that I took to and loved to do. And eventually, when I was living in the Northwest Territories in like 1975, I came down here at Christmas time, and we went to Lake Louise and Banff and so on and skied. And then I came down to Fernie because someone I knew who grew up across the street from me, Richard Laughlin, was here skiing, living here. So I visited him and skied in Fernie, and then I just couldn't really get enough of that.
So you knew Richard from when you were kids?
We grew up across the street from each other.
So that's how Rip and Richard started.
Well, that's not really how Rip and Richard started, but that's why I initially came to Fernie, and then to ski. So eventually that whole Rip and Richards thing happened. But I skied here for years and years. Come here and ski in the winter only, and not be here in the summer or spring and fall. Mm-hmm. And I taught on the ski school with Dave Rogers, and all through like the 70s and into the 80s. And Fernie was a happening place in the 70s, as you well know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was here.
Yeah, there was lots going on.
Yeah. Uptown
was full of stores, and
well, that
there
was because the mine had been resurrected. Kaiser had come in, and there was all kinds of people from California and other exotic places. Like if you had lived in Fernie most of your life and were raised here, all these people were just like so exotic. I mean, they were so sophisticated. I mean, Fernie was a bit of a sleepy little mining town.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden all these people came in, and it was great. We had all those fancy parties and
That's right. There was lots going on.
Yeah.
There was the elevator restaurant and sort of lounge there, and there was always lots happening there, and the town was full of cabarets and sort of nightclub type things. Mm-hmm. There was the T-Bars Cabaret, and there was the Waterhole Number 3, and there was all these places that had restaurants and music and dancing and so on,
which we hadn't seen.
Yeah, really, it had quite a ski town atmosphere through the late 70s.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, and everyone thought that Fernie was going to really happen, and it was going to be kind of the next big destination.
Another Banff, another Whistler.
Although it's important to note that we only had 2 ski lifts at the time. It was 2 T-bars, really was what was there, mm-hmm. and. But the snow was always great, and the skiing was really awesome here, and as it still is, even more awesome now. And then there was the big wha-bam, of course, in the early 80s when it all changed. It was a big recession. Yeah. And people were dropping their keys off at the bank.
Yeah.
And they had probably bought a house for $125,000 house, and they had $40,000 or $60,000 worth of equity in it, and then all of a sudden that house was worth less than you owed on it.
Yeah, I do remember bankers, friends saying people are just coming in and throwing their keys on the counter.
That's right. Saying, here, you take it. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Because there was no work, and there was just it was really all of Western Canada, on all the resource industries and everything were really on their face, and interest rates were 20%.
Yes.
And if you had cash, you were looking good, and if you had debt, you weren't looking so good.
And that all happened, really, if you think about it, in the 80s, was because the mine went down.
Locally.
Yeah.
But oil prices were depressed, and even Eastern Canada, where I was living at the time, was people with debt were hurting and people with cash were looking good.
Mm-hmm.
So it was nationwide,
Yeah.
really. It was a big hit.
Well, really, we've seen a few big hits because that was the 80s, and then in 2008 we had that world downturn too that affected us. But, I always think of Fernie because we're in this little bubble of Fernie. And for Fernie, when the mines went down, boy, the whole town went down.
Yeah.
So it's great that we have this secondary tourism industry.
Yeah, I mean, and there was a lot of, people came to Fernie and, rented the hotels and, took ski weeks and it was, a busy time up there at the ski area.
So you were right in the thick of things when things were really bubbling over there, huh?
Yeah. I mean, so it was, skiing remained awesome and that, over time there was other lifts added. The boomerang chair got added and things got changed around and, eventually there was, even bigger changes when the ski area
When do
was
you
sold.
think that it actually really changed, that it really brought Fernie to the forefront?
I don't think there was really a point that it really changed, but through the 80s, Western Canada was still depressed and there was property at the ski area that just didn't sell. I mean, they had an auction at one point where they tried to sell off all the lots at the ski hill that Heiko had developed, and and the Grizian condominiums, and just nothing sold. And in the late 80s, you could buy lots at the ski hill for $25,000.
I remember the Grizian condominiums going for $50,000.
Yeah.
Because I was just in my early 20s and I thought, oh my gosh, I wish I had $50,000 to buy this.
But that's always the way. I mean,
Yeah.
It's when things are depressed, no one's got the money. So, but, I mean, I bought building lots from Heiko in the late 80s and started building some houses at the ski hill. And then things started to turn around through the 90s. And I can't exactly remember when what year it was that the ski area got sold to
Charlie Locke.
Yeah, Charlie Locke. Do you know which? I can't remember what
I
year.
can't remember
Late
what year
90s.
either, yeah.
So,
But that
things-
made a big difference.
big difference.
Yeah.
So things really started to happen.
Yeah.
There was hotels built at the ski area and new subdivision and new homes and there was new lifts put in and that developed what everyone refers to as the new side.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was, I would say, if there was a time or a point where things really changed, it was
Then,
yeah, it was then.
yeah.
And then it went hard and fast for a bit, and then it seemed to stall out again, and then
Well,
the ski area
then
was
when he left,
yeah.
or I don't know if he was forced to leave or if he left on his own.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it was some kind of corporate takeover of some fashion that.
But I remember
us.
that when he did take over, he marketed greatly all over because I recall
You mean
friends.
he, as in Murray?
Charlie
Locke, yeah.
Because I remember friends going to Australia and saying, here we are walking down the street and all of a sudden in this window we see a big poster and it's talking about Fernie, it's mentioning Fernie, and they were like so excited that in Australia they were seeing advertising for Fernie Ski Hill.
Well, there was a ton of Australian people that
Yeah.
came here to ski and still do.
Yeah.
It's got some kind of cachet for people there that Fernie's, but then all of the Kootenays. So there's a lot of Australian people that certainly enjoy Fernie.
What do you remember? Because when did you actually settle into Fernie, when you stopped just visiting?
Well, 89, I moved my business interests here to build houses and started up our woodworking company in the early 90s. And
Which
Just
everybody
so-
knows is River City Woodworks.
that's right. So
Yeah.
we've been chugging away, changing the shape of wood for
You
many
do
years.
the most beautiful things, though. Your doors and tables, like.
Well, we've carved out a niche market for high-end woodwork, and it's just something we've always worked
Quality
at.
woodwork too.
Well, yeah, I mean, it has to be quality woodwork if it's on the high end, because it's really not about price at that level. It's about what it is. So, always jobs start about how much it is, but they really change over to what people want. And that's what, we offer is custom, specialty, authentic woodwork that, and that's how we've made our living here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's everybody's problem who wants to live in Fernie, is how do I make a living? So everyone works, some kind of an angle or some kind of thing they can do or provide. There's many people that would love to work here in Fernie, but they can't really see their way clear to making a living.
Mm-hmm. So I know that you were the first Grizz, and I mean the Grizz Days is a big thing in Fernie, and what was it, a couple of years ago they celebrated 40 years, I believe. But you were the very first one, so that was even before.
There was a winter carnival.
Yeah.
I think it was 1978, so there was a winter carnival that was flagging. Like it was sort of petering out, it wasn't being well attended, it didn't have much verve, so they came up with this bright idea. Instead of having a winter carnival and crowning a queen, and traditionally all that sort of stuff, they decided they were going to have a winter carnival called Grizz Days, and they were going to crown a mountain man kind of figure, and breathe new life into this whole winter carnival thing, and change the whole look of it, with having sort of all kinds of things like snowshoe races and axe throwing contests and beer chugging contests and whatnot, as all part of this Grizz contest. And I think it was it was a great idea, and they wasn't really well thought out, and it just took off like crazy. This whole Grizz contest just became outrageous success, and it was a great party, and so after the first year, I think they had to institute a few more regulations to calm down the enthusiasm.
Well, I recall everybody dressing up so wonderful, with their fancy Daniel Boone hats.
Yeah, coonskin hat.
Yeah, and the furs, and it was.
But they had a bunch of competitions at the ski hill, and there was a beer chugging contest connected to a tall tale telling contest.
I remember axe throwing over at the golf course,
right?
Because I remember attending.
Yeah, they had it at various places at the ski hill and so on.
And what they used to do in Main Street, they'd have a pig roast, they'd have some type of I don't know if it was a competition or if it was just like a play where they'd have people coming out, men. Mm-hmm. Coming out of the northern, and they would be shooting their muskets, and they had.
I think Dave Baker was generally responsible for the shooting of the black powder musket.
Yeah, because they had
Grizz Days,
long muskets, and you guys were pretty impressive.
He took
the beards
Dave Baker took great glee in discharging that firearm downtown.
It was exciting, and the streets were filled with people, and.
It really took off, and. I think that, over time, it's sort of, they've calmed it down too much, and then they've started to revive it, and it's, but it's maintained. The Grizz Days thing is, really picked up where the Winter Carnival left off, and it's become an event for the town.
Well, you looked great. And you didn't bring a photo, did you?
No, I didn't.
Darn. Because you really looked the part, Willard.
Well, I did have a big beard back then.
A beard, yeah. And you had that wonderful hat.
And I could drink beer much better than I can now.
Oh, well, 40 plus years ago?
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Could do a lot of things better now.
A lot better.
Than I can now.
A lot faster, a lot. Yeah. So, how did you decide that you wanted to be part of that?
Part of what?
Of this competition of
Well, I don't know that I really decided what was sort of, someone entered me. And they were trying to get people in to get this thing going, so I went along with it, and had a great time competing with all kinds of characters.
Yeah, because there was quite a few.
Yeah. So some local people and people from away, and it was a lot of fun.
Yes, I'm gonna have to find a photo because I know there's a photo. There's photos out there on Google and of you.
Well, there was points awarded for all kinds of things, not the least of which was bribing the all-female panel of judges.
So,
yeah, you could.
Which
more
I'm sure wasn't very hard for you. All
was
you had to
certainly
do
fun.
was
So,
go over there and
yeah.
give them a smile, and you had
But
them.
anyway, it was it's all part of Fernie now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. I'm glad that they're still doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, you probably know that it was Heiko Sochers who came up with the Grizz idea, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think the Grizz as a figure,
Yeah.
a figurehead or a icon of the ski area, certainly, yeah. Heiko came up with that idea and created the story and so
Yeah. Actually, a friend created the story. Okay, we'll just take a little tiny break.
on. So I mean, skiing was the thing,
Mm-hmm.
to live in Fernie and be able to live in it. Certainly, my dream was to live in a ski town and be able to ski and make my living, and brought up some kids here, and
And you've done that.
yeah, and so here I am today.
You've made your dream come true.
Well, I guess in some ways, yeah, it's been a great place to live and a great place to make a living, and we've built up this business that provides a lot of income for people in the town, and gives a place for skilled tradespeople to work, and it's been rewarding in that regard to be able to do that.
When you first moved to Fernie permanently, what did you think of the town itself, like for services, for buildings, for what was offered?
Well, Fernie had more than a few rough spots. It wasn't really like this beautiful town, although it had some characters, like the downtown. But during some of that time in the 80s and so on, there was, architectural degradation, or I like to call it architectural genocide, where they jackhammered the whole front off the Value Drug Mart, with a nice facade, brick facade, and did all kinds of things to buildings that took away from some of their beauty. But still, Fernie had enough of an inventory of nice older buildings that it kept quite a bit of character.
Like they tore down a beautiful bank building that is now the CIBC Bank.
Mm-hmm.
It was a beautiful building, and they tore down the original city hall that housed the jails and the RCMP, and you went down steps and there was the RCMP, and we've lost a few buildings to fires.
Yeah, and that RCMP building, for instance, those are evident all over Canada.
Yeah.
Those red brick buildings with no architectural character whatsoever.
Right.
And there's the TD Bank and the CIBC, and all these buildings were built at a time where, people just didn't put the money into creating architecturally beautiful buildings.
Well, I don't know if it was even appreciated. Like the architecture of the past was not appreciated.
No, I think that's true.
It was like this stark, plain. Look what they did to the high school.
Mm-hmm.
Covering the beautiful brick facade with
Stucco.
white stucco and that great big huge yellow panel right across and right around the building, taking down the bell tower that was there.
It was all about money.
Yeah.
It was all about money and keeping those buildings going for a use, but there wasn't the interest in, the architectural beauty that there is today, for instance.
Mm-hmm. And so thanks to, some of the people from Fernie, some of the residents who decided that they wanted to save some of the buildings, for instance, the library.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the library, really what we have today is due to people that said, hey, we need to keep this building that's empty and let's turn it into a library. And I mean, now it's a showpiece.
Mm-hmm.
And the museum, the building, it's just...
So, and over time there was a bunch of old wood frame hotels that burnt down.
Yeah, the Kings.
Yeah.
The King Edward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are all, but that's what, gave Fernie a lot of character, is that downtown core.
Yeah.
It has that ski town, American mining town, come ski town in the Rockies look. Mm-hmm. Whether it's Breckenridge or it's Vail or Aspen or a lot of these famous ski resorts have their start with the same kind of a look.
Well, even Canmore, is their background is mining.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember the Waldorf? Was the Waldorf still up when you came?
No, I don't remember it. Yeah.
Yeah. we weren't allowed to go in, but it had a restaurant on the left that had linens, white linens. You could see it through the window. But when you looked through the doorway that had windows, I had glass, you could see this beautiful wood stairwell going all the way up, you know, just beautiful wood. And that seemed to, in that time period where the school was changed and things were torn down, they didn't appreciate those beautiful wood, that beautiful wood.
Well, I think those things were built in a time when labor was cheap and wood as a material was readily available, and that was a material that was easily used. And you know, just labor becoming more expensive all the time, you know, that kind of stuff is became harder to afford. So other materials and, you know, so on were used that were labor saving, and a lot of that, what we look back on as beauty, just fell away.
Sad though, because I remember the Northern had great big windows in the front, and you could look through it and see they also had one of these big wooden stairwells. City Hall had big wooden stairwell that was big and thick and wood on the...
Yeah, the Central and the Northern both had a lot of architectural features that have been changed. The only hotel that really retains any of that is the Royal. You know, and so, you know, people love the idea of seeing that restored, but, you know, a cost analysis on that is pretty damning.
Oh, today you couldn't build what was built years ago, right? You're right about labor being so much cheaper. But it's still sad, because I love that architecture from those period, you know, from the past.
Yeah, a lot of people do, and they feel a lot of warmness toward it when they see that kind of older hotels. And, you know, in some ways that's what we kind of what we do at River City Woodworks for some of these upscale homes and commercial, you know, bars and restaurants and so on. We're able to do that kind of work.
Well, because you can replicate.
Yeah, well, we can actually, you know, we just do that same thing that those tradesmen and craftsmen were doing back then.
Because you did the doors at City Hall.
Yeah.
And they're exact replica of what
was
used
there,
to be.
yeah. And yeah, we did the museum doors. You know, we've restored them. So we've done a bunch of other doors.
Did you do those beautiful doors at the Park Place Lodge pub?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one can only imagine how many times they've been opened and closed.
Imagine is right.
Yeah.
Many times.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the kind of thing we do, you know, here and there, not just in the Fernie area. We work all over. So, you know, we do work in the Okanagan, we do work in Calgary, and you know, on lakefront properties, and, you know, acreages and so on, where people are building unique homes.
Did you redo the doors at the Catholic Church?
Yeah, we did restored those.
Yeah, restored them.
Because they were actually quite an interesting white oak door that was well constructed.
Is that what that wood is?
And so they, you know, we took them into our shop and totally, you know, restored them and refinished them so that they'll last another 100 years.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't think that the courthouse has had any work like that done at all.
Well, we built the front doors for the courthouse.
Oh, did you?
And the two windows on the sides of the portico there. Because that courthouse originally didn't have that sort of front entry way.
Oh, it didn't.
Closes the stairs. That was built at a later date. So originally, it would have just had the stairways going down and the one going up, and then that
with no coverage.
No cover.
And that's really interesting you should say that, because I have memories of the 50s where I thought that there wasn't that covered, but I thought it was just my imagination.
No, it wasn't there. I don't know when that front was built, but there were doors and windows in there that, actually I don't think there was windows. Maybe there was no doors and windows or something. I can't quite remember. But we were commissioned to build windows for the side and front doors. And it was all drawn by an architect and everything, and then we built those and put them in. So those doors on the outside and the windows on the side are from River City Woodworks.
But that's really great. I mean, I would, if that was me, I'd feel so proud to know that I've left my mark in different ways.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's rewarding to see that work that we did and see it standing, up, you know.
Mm-hmm. Now, at one period of time, that Fourth Avenue had four churches, because the Methodist Church
Mm-hmm.
was right across from the courthouse, and then there was the Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, and the Lutheran Church.
Mm-hmm.
So when the Lutheran Church was sold a year ago, I thought, it really touched me, because I like those old buildings, and I thought, wow, this church is going to go, but apparently the owner is wanting to keep the looks of the church on the outside, and so far they haven't made any drastic changes.
No, I think that I know that person.
Yeah.
You know, through business, and yeah, that's what their goal is. I think is to turn it into a residence, and it was good that it was purchased by someone who's interested in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because there's just not enough land there for any kind of commercial venture.
Right.
But a family owns it and they're living in it.
Yeah, and with them, yeah, 'cause I've seen kids coming in and out. And the Methodist Church was turned into those 4 condos, and they were very inventive, because they were able to purchase some property behind them and put in garages for parking.
Yeah.
Yeah, very inventive, creative. People can really be creative, right?
Yeah, and it's good that properties are restored like that.
Mhm.
But there's no regulation about that. There's no regulation within the town about architectural styles, and there's none really about buildings like that. And it would be a good idea,
Yeah.
I think, if there was some protection for historical properties.
There is a group right now that is spearheaded by the museum that's looking at all of that, and actually that last year that I was on council, I was part of that, and we went around all the neighborhoods, and a lot of information was taken just to see, to put down the history and the values, and come up with some kind of paper to say, okay, this is what's valuable, this is what should be done, and perhaps they'll go even as far as what you were suggesting.
Regulating it to
Yeah.
some degree, so you can't do what was done to the front of the Value Drug Mart so long ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because in certain time periods, properties or historic buildings have low value. They're not regarded as valuable, and then they can just be torn down and different buildings or modern buildings put in their place.
I know, which, the idea of the courthouse being taken over and turned into condos was like so foreign to me. I was on the council that said, let's buy it. And it's a great thing, because it's a beautiful, beautiful building. It was actually nominated by Blair East for an award about 4 years ago, and it was chosen as the best building in the interior.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of those buildings of that style were built around British Columbia, as I understand it, in a certain time period.
One of the reasons that it was so beautiful was not only the exterior, but also the way it's, if I remember how it was explained, the way it was set with the trees around it, and just the whole picture, apparently, was what made it the best.
Yeah, well, it is a beautiful building,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, it is.
Fernie's lucky to have those.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think that's all part and parcel to, what makes Fernie a destination for people, because it has character.
Yes. You must have heard it too, visitors saying, oh, Fernie's a real town.
Yeah, I mean, it does have that aspect. It's not just a resort town.
Yeah.
It does have, the whole, blue collar, working town aspect.
So, let me ask you something. Did I just hear not long ago that you're a grandpa for the 3rd time?
That's right. We got some grandkids going on there between my wife Susan and I. We've got quite a gang of grandkids, but they seem to keep on coming up. So we got a
Will now has 2?
Yeah, That's
And,
right.
did he get a girl this time?
Yes, he did.
Lucky him.
Venice Day Ripley.
Mhm. And Coulter has Bayo.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So we got.
And Susan, how many grandkids on her?
I don't even know whether I have a number, but it's quite a few.
Oh yeah. So when you guys all get together,
We can fill our house up pretty quickly.
I find it so hard to believe when I still think of Coulter and Will as little boys, to think that here they have children.
Yeah, now they're all 30-somethings.
Yeah.
And Susan's daughter and my daughter Lacey is, she's now driving a coal truck. So,
Wow.
I know, things change.
Yeah, they do, but Fernie's still a good place to live.
Yeah, it's an awesome place to live.
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't really outdo the convenience
Yeah.
and the location and the beauty, and the quality of life here.
Yeah, it really
So,
is.
when you think about how convenient it is to travel anywhere from Fernie, or how safe and, clean living it is here, and the opportunities for recreation, if you ask yourself, where would I go to, it would be a tough one to find a better place.
That's why I'm still here.
Yeah.
And
Me
that's
too.
why you're still here, and I
Yeah.
so appreciate you coming and speaking with me.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Mary.
Thank you so much.
Oh, not at
This
all.
is great.
Yeah.
Thank you.